was sound quality. So what I mean by that, number one, they refreshed the full product line of interfaces. So there's all new inbox interfaces, for instance. But the same thing applies to our professional side of interfaces. We have a new HDIO, a MADI-IO, and then this one. This one is called the Omni-IO. This one is really becoming one of my favorites because it's unique compared to all of the other interfaces. So number one, right on the front, you'll see it has a couple of mic pre's, right? So that's nice. It's always good and convenient to have some mic pre's up there. But also it's a full monitoring section. So you can easily just plug in some powered speakers right to your interface. You've got volume control, and you can control from stereo all the way to 7.1. So here's what I have going on real quick. Let's do this. Let's put this on record. Got the bass happening here, and I've got my cable plugged in right to the front of the Omni. Because it also has a DI, right? So you can plug guitars and things straight in. So I've got bass in here for a reason, not, well, yeah, I feel like playing. I'd much rather play than sit up here and talk, but I really have it here to talk about latency. So that's always something you want to bring up anytime, you know, musicians, singers, producers, they kind of know you want to make sure you have the lowest amount of latency possible, right? And that's where the HDX comes in. So just like our HD systems, it's not something to worry about later. You guys are hearing what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the speakers. Any latency I hear is because the speakers are far away. It's just right there with you. Now that we've got the latency thing kind of covered, let's work a little bit on the tone. Even though that Omni actually sounds kind of good. So let's see if we can add a little bit of flavor to it. I'm going to go back over to my Surface. And let's bring up another new plugin. You see Softube plugin. This is the TLA 100A. So this model is the Summit compressor. Maybe you guys might have this in the studio. It's a great sounding analog tube compressor, right? So I'm kind of squashing it now. Keep going. Let's add a little bit more. There's another plugin up there. This one is called Character. Now this is made by Metric Halo. These are both AAX plugins, so they already are in the new format, right? The Character is way cool. Look at this. This is very different than what I've seen in the past in the Pro Tools world. This models some very interesting things like transformers, tubes, boutique tube, probably like a Telefunken tube, right? And different type of pre's, mic pre's, California tube mic. I would assume that's probably the Manley stuff, right? I mean, this is an amazing plugin, and it adds a lot of different character to the equation. So I'm gonna go for it. I'm hitting it hard. I don't even care. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in record. Let's just do it. All right, here we go. So simple, easy, quick, no latency. I'm tracking. I'm not really tracking through plugins. I'm tracking with plugins on the track, right? I don't need to track through plugins. Everything's live. I've got an HDX system. So simple. Let me go ahead and get rid of that clip gain line. We don't need to see that anymore. Now we've got bass in there. As far as I'm concerned, the demo should be over with. Once you add the bass, the game's over. But let's move on. I got a couple more things I think you guys really going to want to see. So check this out. Put this away. The artists for the track, they want it for their live show. You know, they use backing tracks. That's right. Nobody uses musicians anymore. So in their backing tracks, they wanted to have it a little bit more of a live feel, right? So we decided we'd go ahead and track some drums. So they have some options in how they go about doing their backing tracks. And that brings up my good friend Roger Carter. This guy's a great drummer based out of LA. He plays with a ton of different artists and, you know, whatever. Great drummer. Also, Neil Citron was also another LA-based engineer you guys might have heard of. He's done a lot of stuff and mixed for a lot of different artists as well. So they kind of engineered the session for us. We brought over the HDX rig with all the plugins and all the stuff going on and just track this stuff. Never worried about latency. So Roger, of course, had to play to the drum loops because they were in there. So here's the loop, right? So that's what he had to play to. And let's just bring in his drums. So he's right there playing with the loop. Well, you know. tight. But we don't have to settle for tight. We can make things a little bit tighter. And I'll show you how you can do that now. Before I go into Beat Detector though, I want to bring up something I mentioned earlier. It's called Disc Cache. So that's some new functionality in Pro Tools HD, Pro Tools 10 HD software. And what Disc Cache is, bottom line is, it allows you to take a portion of RAM in your computer, right? And it will use, and Pro Tools will load all the audio in your timeline into RAM. So your playback is coming from RAM, not from disk. So the benefit for you is just instantaneous playback. Obviously, reading from disk always takes a little bit longer. But the other benefit is that you're not playing back from disk. So those of you that are recording, now all the drive is doing is worrying about the recording. So you can actually get away with recording either a lot more tracks or from slower drives. Not that I recommend it, but I mean, we've tracked to USB sticks. I've even tracked to my iDisk. I really don't recommend that. But boy, it actually works, and that's scary. But Disc Cache is the feature. Behind the scenes, it's called the Disc Scheduler. So that's some functionality that's been in Pro Tools for 15 years now, and was in dire need of an update. It's old code, right? So they updated the whole code, and in doing so, we get features like Disc Cache. We also get features like real-time fades now. So no more little fade file folders. Remember, fades, the way Pro Tools worked with fades in the past, we would write a small little file to disk. Over the time and over a large session, it's always got to read those little small files. That degrades playback performance. That's all gone away. So the performance, the snappiness of Pro Tools 10 is much better. Even doing things like going to the workspace and auditioning sounds, it happens right away. No more delay. So things like Beat Detective, boy, which were really rough when it came to fades and stuff, are now much easier. So here we go. Let's take a quick listen to these drums via Beat Detective. So here's what you want to do with Beat Detective. It's going to analyze it. And this has been around for a while in Pro Tools. This isn't new, but the functionality or the speed of it is. I've analyzed it, now I'm going to separate it. Boom! I've just separated all of his little drum hits, right, into their own little small regions. So now, you know, in that amount, there's probably a couple of hundred or more, just little small regions. And it does that so that when you go to conform, it actually can nudge or move those regions. It's kind of like quantize, like you would do in MIDI. So boom, it just moves those regions over a little bit. So listen to the drums now. It's tight, but listen, right at the beginning when the cymbal hits, you can hear like something going on. Those are the little artifacts, right? Remember, we've cut a cymbal in half and moved part of the region. So you got to do a crossfade to finish out the equation. And in the past, this is when the performance would go down, because now you're adding, you know, hundreds of little small fades that Pro Tools would have to write and recall. Now it's done in RAM, so watch this. I go to edit smoothing, it happens right away. I hit smooth, boom, done. I play back, it sounds tight already, and it doesn't have to read little fade files from a drive. So let's bring back in the loop. So now you can hear it with the loop we had to play too. That's just rock solid right now. So I took this, and basically, I hate to say it, Roger, but I beat detected your drums throughout the whole song. And so now listen to this with the whole track and with fills. So everything just tightens up, even drum fills or whatever rides. So anyway, that's Beat Detective, but bottom line, that's really about the new Disc Scheduler and Disc Cache. That functionality really gives some power to your Pro Tools system. All right, let me finish this up and talk a little bit about the mix. So again, I'm on an HDX system. I have a 2-card system right now. And I just want to show you a couple of quick plugins that we have in here. First of all, Channel Strip. This is new. This is included with Pro Tools 10, any version of Pro Tools 10. This one basically takes the algorithms from the System 5 console, the old Euphonic System 5 console. That a lot of hits have been done on that. Well, those algorithms are now the Channel Strip plugin, so you'll have that sound in any version of Pro Tools 10. It's full channel strips. I've got EQ, I've got compression, side chaining. Here I'm just using it for compression, but I've got this all over the session. Up here, we have another plugin, AAX format. This is another soft tube plugin, but this is the Tube Tech. Some of you guys might remember or have seen or used the CL1B. So this is another tube compressor. boy, just kind of a mainstay in many studios. Great sounding compressors, always known to be one of the compressors of choice for vocals, and that's exactly what I'm using it on. I've got a lot of these on the different vocal tracks in here. And real quick, here's another reverb that I should probably point out. This is by Overloud. This is called the B Reverb. And I brought this one up really for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a great sounding reverb, and you can't have enough reverbs in a Pro Tools environment. This works across the board, not just HDX, but on Pro Tools, any Pro Tools, native or with M-Boxes. But I brought it up mainly to kind of talk a little bit about some more mixing power, things like side chains, things that have been used for years and have always made Pro Tools such a powerful environment for mixing. So just a quick example, I want to add some reverb just to the snare. But these are live drums. If I put a reverb on the snare track, I'm going to add reverb on everything because all the drums leak into the snare mics, right? And that's where things like side chains come in. So you can see it up top. I've got a gate right in front of that reverb. It's right here. So in essence, I can set that threshold so that the reverb will only trigger on the loudest snare hits, right? So yeah, let's just bring it in so you can hear it. Bring up the plug-in. Here's my send to it. You play it without it first. Solo that up. So no reverb, no gate on yet. So let's turn the gate on. Now you hear that, just a little bit of slap reverb, right? But again, it only triggers on the loudest snare hits. If I bring in the whole track, you get something like... Side chains and all of the different things that are kind of powerful routing. That's all the stuff that we're all using in Pro Tools and have been for years. So let me just slide on down to the master fader real quick. Really the master bus. I got just a couple other plugins you might want to check out because they're new. Another one from FabFilter. This one's called Pro C. Here's one by the great, and yes, I call him the great, Dave Hill. He makes the Phoenix plugin. He also makes Heat, which is kind of popular for Pro Tools. TDM users have been using Heat. Heat also works with Pro Tools HDX right now. That's great. But here's the Phoenix plugin, and I like to show this one because Phoenix has always been a TDM-only plugin, right? But now since it's AAX, Phoenix works both, we call it DSP or native. So it'll work on any Pro Tools system. It's not just a TDM plugin. And last but not least, there's a small company. These guys were called Cytomic. And they came out almost immediately with an AAX version of their plugin. This one's called the Glue. So a nice mix bus compressor, right? I'm just going to bring some of these in. You'll hear what's going on, maybe. Here we go. So here's FabFilter. I'm widening it out just a little bit. Here's Dave Hill. I want to bring back just a little bit of that bottom from it. Now we're just going to crush it just a little bit. Just like that. So we could just go on and on and on and on. I mean, there's so many different options of plugins now. Remember, Pro Tools HDX also still supports RTAS. So if you have RTAS plugins, those still work. You've got a slew of plugins that are available. So I want to show you one last thing before I let you go. I've been talking about this cache, so here's what it looks like. In your system usage window, you'll see I have it turned on. It's just letting me know that my whole timeline is cached. In fact, anything with this that has to do with this session is in cache. That's what this green means. Look at the CPU, I'm at 7%. You know, I have about 10 virtual instruments in there and a lot of other stuff going on, barely even hitting the CPU. And also, I have an HDX card. I've got 2 cards in my system. And I've just about filled up 1 card. But what's going on really behind the scenes?